Shalom Aleichem, everybody. It's nice to be back. I've had a break for a couple of weeks. I want to tell you a beautiful thought that I heard about this week's Parshas Vayechi. It's called Parshas Vayechi because it starts with the words Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim, that Jacob lived for 17 years in Egypt. Interestingly, Vayechi means and he lived, but the whole Parsha is about that he died actually, because straight away it says Vayikrevu Yemei Yisrael Lamus. The days of Israel, Jacob's other name Israel, it came close that his days to die. And this is the same language that we see in the Haftarah of this week's Parsha Vayechi, Vayikrevu Yemei David Lamus. King David's days drew near to die. So a question is asked. First of all, the fact that it's called Vayechi and he lived means that someone who's a righteous man lives on forever, even after his death. As it says, David Melech Israel Chai v'Kayam. David, the king of Israel, is alive and kicking, even though he's obviously physically passed away. But equally, why does it say that his days drew near to die? It should say that it drew near that he would die, but his days drew near to die, because this is the meaning of living on forever, that the days on earth come to an end, but the legacy and the message and the values that are left for generations and forever after, they live on forever. So yes, your physical days draw near to dying, but your legacy lives on forever. That's one of the messages we can all learn from this week's Parsha, that a message we can take, that we can give over so much kindness and values and wisdom to generations, to our children and to other people. And this will live on forever, even long after our days here are numbered. Another message that I'd like to take from this week's Parsha, which I heard from Reb Melech Biderman, I listen to his Divrei Torah every day. He raises a very, very interesting idea. You know, 2020 has been a tough year, to say the least. And we all need to recover. And there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel now with vaccines coming for COVID, etc. He points to 3 times in this week's Parsha where the word lehitchazek, to become strong, where it's used. The first time, at the beginning of the Parsha, it says, Vayischazek Yisrael vayeshev al hamito. Israel became strong and he sat up on the bed. The next time, at the end of every one of the 5 books of Moses, we know when we get to the end of the Parsha, at the end of the book, we say chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek, that we should become strong, that we should go on in strength, continue in strength. And this week's Parsha Vayechi is the last sefer, the last book in the book of Genesis. And at the end of this week's Parsha, when we get to the last words, we will say the words chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek. And finally, if we look in the Haftarah, it says that David's days drew near to ending. And he said to Shlomo, his son, to Solomon, I am going to die, v'chozakto v'hoyisol leish, that you should become strong and become a man. And how should you do that? You should go in the ways of Hashem. Loleches bidrochov. You should walk in the ways of God. So there's 3 instances in this week's Parsha where we talk about gaining strength. First of all, Vayischazek Yisrael vayeshev al hamito. He was lying down on his bed. He became strong and he sat up on the bed. The second time, chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek. Everybody's sitting down at the end when they read the Torah, but we all stand up from the seated position to say chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek. And finally, the third example where you should become strong and become a man, that is laleches bidrochov, to walk in the ways of God. So we see a progression here, from lying on the bed to sitting up, from sitting to standing up to say chazak, chazak, and then from becoming strong to walk in the ways of God. The progression from lying to sitting to standing and to walking. And this, says Rabbi Biderman, is the proper way that someone can fully recover and recuperate from anything, from any type of trauma or from any type of setback. You can't just get up and run straight away. You know, you've got to sit up first take a deep breath, try and take in what you've been through, gain some more strength, and then you can eventually stand up. Once again, take stock of your own capacity to grow and recover, and finally to start walking. And so after this tough year that we've had with COVID, Baruch Hashem, we have a vaccine. People are starting to get a bit more positive about the way forward and about coming out of this. So we may have taken a hit, but we've been able to not only get up, but soon to start walking, and please God, to all start running forward. And we should all continue to go forward in leaps and bounds in a year, and the civilian new year, full of blessing and full of increased strength. Chazak, chazak, v'nischazek, Shabbat Shalom.